Oh, here we are back. Sorry about that. They cut to me. I wasn't prepared for it. We're looking for Jeremy at the quartering right now. I think he knows to be here, but we should have him any minute. You can also find him on X at The Quartering, as well as his coffee brand at Coffee Brand Company. And then Viva Frei is going to swing by. Perhaps we can grab him a little early. While we're waiting for Jeremy, though, I'm happy to take your questions. So if you head over to the Restream or over to the Rumble Rants, I can look for you guys there and answer any questions you might have. A lot to talk about today. I mean, the Quartering has been reporting on things like what Howard Stern was saying about being woke, about Barry Weiss at CBS, DiCaprio in his new film. There's a lot to talk about. And in fact, that Disney seems to be abandoning some of its DEI in terms of its casting practices. A lot to go over. And of course, Viva is going to talk about Letitia James and more to come on the Schiff mortgage fraud. All of that after this. Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying. You go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. Paleo Valley is always innovating, bringing you new products to market, of course, using doctor.com/Paleo Valley. You will get 15% off your first order and 20% off when you subscribe. And of course, one of the first things I promoted and consumed quite a bit of when the company joined our family of sponsors was the grass-fed and finished beef sticks. And that remains a fan favorite and a personal favorite as well, particularly the classic and the summer sausage. These delicious, chewy sticks have higher levels of omega-3 fatty acid than conventional beef. They're naturally fermented and contain 0 grams of sugar, 0 artificial preservatives, 0 gluten, 0 soy or corn. I eat them sometimes before a show or after show, between meal breaks. Certainly when I travel, I bring them everywhere. Use it before a workout so I don't get super hungry. All the protein stick varieties are superior to your typical jerky. Paleo Valley is a wonderful small business that promotes healthful eating and supports this show. Get 15% off your first order with drdrew.com/Paleo Valley. And we are back. As I said, Jeremy from the Quartering should be here any second. In the meantime, I'm looking at your guys' questions on the Restream. If you have any questions there, I see some YMH fan, Dan Boyd. I don't know what you're talking about there, about shitting the bed, but I'm interested. Also, in addition, we're going to talk about with Viva, amongst other things, the fact that Alex Jones, apparently, Supreme Court passed on his attempt for an appeal at the over $1 billion penalty he's due to pay the families at Sandy Hook, which is hard to understand how that's even possible. There's the headline for that, $1.4 billion Sandy Hook judgment. It's just an extraordinary. I don't understand why there wouldn't be an appeal for that, but okay. I'd love to hear what the reasoning is with that. Let's see. I'm asking you guys on the rants if there's questions there. I wonder if I should go on X as well and see if anybody's come up with that. I'm here in New York City today. I'll be traveling this evening, and I was just talking with Adam about various issues. One of the things we were talking about was, there's been so many demonstrations in New York around the issue of Palestine. And one of the constant refrains here in the city was Israel out of Palestine. And my question to all the demonstrators now is, okay, Israel's out of Palestine, or are we done here? Are we good? Are we going to have more demonstrations about something? Yes, war is horrible. I am not saying anything good about anything in relation to this catastrophe. War is horrible. But in terms of the request of the demonstrators, I was always happy to see when demonstrations have a purpose. So often the demonstrations are just sort of like the ones coming up next weekend. No kings. Okay, gotcha. No kings. Done. Okay. So what do you want? Why are you going on the streets? What do we hope to accomplish here? Which is so different the demonstrations that went on in the 60s, which I think people have this romantic attachment to what was going on during that period of history, where there was very specific demands: out of Vietnam now, civil rights now, an amendment now. Yes, and those things happened, and the demonstrations stopped. And they were very, very specific, and they were very, very effective. Going out and saying, I want a seat at the table, or I'm frustrated, or I have a grievance, or no kings, or I don't like that guy, that's not going to be very helpful. It's not going to be very useful. And I don't understand why people do that, why they would go out and waste their time. Why not organize differently and to get some political activism going? Let's see. Where is Jeremy? Somebody says hustled off his show a while ago. Did not talk about coming on our show. Well, maybe he forgot. And Reski USA says maybe they're professional protesters, which does seem to be a major piece of what goes on out there these days, which is people are paid to go press. In fact, I've heard that there's actually a union of protesters. So that's how structured this whole phenomenon of professional protesters has become, which of course begs the issue, who is funding these things, and how do we allow these things to kind of keep going? Thank you, Kari. It's interesting. I was on Greg Gutfeld's show maybe a month or so ago, maybe it was 2 months ago, and Jamie Lissow was sitting next to me, and we were talking about the NGOs and how they are laundering money and finding ways to pay for these things like demonstrations and whatnot. And he's so funny. Jamie goes, I don't know. I never heard those, and I never heard of NGO before, except in that song, BINGO. And I just thought, oh my God, you just nailed that. So, and it was eye-opening. Here's somebody who wants to comment on Letitia James. Mental illness has something to do with it? Not so sure. I do think there is a weakness afoot, and people are not thinking about this tendency to vilify other people and to have grievances and to be narcissistically preoccupied. And here's an interesting topic. Hang on a second. Let me just see what your questions are here. Justice Letitia actually committed crimes that can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, though the documentation alone, not through elaborate interpretation, which, like a good legal representation. Look, I'm sure that people do a lot of funny business with their loan documents. I'm sure of it. Or just say simply, I didn't know I was going to use that as a second home. Or they could just change their mind after and there could be some, there could be some premeditated quality in it. They may have done it themselves to benefit themselves. But I don't know how much like when President Trump was found guilty of having underrepresented the value of his home. I mean, people do that all the time in loans. I don't know that makes it right. It's just that people do these things. So there's film footage of it. Oh, perfect. Film footage available to see that Antifa is renting storage units where the fanciest sticks and stones are kept. Yeah. Jeremy's wife is in the ER. He posted about it. So I guess Jeremy has a good reason not to be here right now. Let me I want to mention, we're at Viva Frei coming in here in a few minutes. I want to mention something about sort of Trump derangement syndrome generally. I'm sure the door is going to open up. I can't come to the door, sorry. But that, in fact, think about this. I mentioned narcissism when it comes to people's grievances. Think about how grandiose you have to be. Now, this is a weird and interesting kind of thought. To insist that you know best what qualities a president of the United States should have. Like, what are the personality qualities that person should have? And what are the characteristics that make for the best possible president of the United States in a particular moment of history? I am not skilled enough to understand that. And I put in evidence the fact that there are many instances of presidents of the United States with significant character pathology or even serious mental illness who were amongst our best presidents. So let me just give you a couple examples while I just quickly look at your questions and things. I hope Jeremy's wife is okay. Okay. So for instance, let me just paint a couple pictures of some mental status profiles of some president of the United States. This one president, during his young adult life, became so depressed on 2 occasions, he had to be under constant 24-hour watch by his friends, and all sharp objects had to be kept away from him. Later in life, he had great obsessions. He began obsessing that he had syphilis and was preoccupied. And he maybe had a little bipolar disorder where he could kind of work long hours and not sleep, but his depressions were the prominent feature. And even during his period in the White House, there's a story of him walking down Pennsylvania Avenue with pulling his son in a red wagon, essentially, and his son flipping out of the red wagon at the White House, pretty much, like near the White House, and still dragging the upside down wagon all the way to Capitol Hill. He was so lost in his fugue of depression. Should that guy be president of the United States? Is that individual somebody we should contemplate as a good president? And, oh, by the way, he was very rigid in his thinking, so rigid that he precipitated a war. Now, you could say principled, but also rigid. So if you thought that mood disturbance was sufficient to disqualify him from the presidency, you just disqualified Abraham Lincoln. How about an intermittent, severe alcoholic? Severe, so severe that he would disappear for days and days at a time. And by the way, his character pathology was stuff that he had long periods of time where he couldn't function. He really had difficulty. He ended up almost homeless, essentially, but he ended up becoming sort of a farmhand and working for his father-in-law in a leather factory, essentially like a tanning factory. I'll get to Viva in just a second. I just want to finish my case here. And even during presidency, there were some reports about periods where he got severely drunk. They had to keep alcohol away from him. He knew he couldn't start drinking, but occasionally he did. And he was actually victim and manipulated by a group of essentially currency frauds. Another great leader and president we would have disqualified, Ulysses S. Grant. And finally, a narcissist who was extremely compartmentalized in his thinking. When his first wife died and his mother, both whom he loved dearly, he never spoke about them again. He was very grandiose, extremely grandiose. When he was working for the police force in New York City, he would go out at night and beat up criminals himself. He would pace around in the middle of the night and drop by bars and organizations sort of institutions where criminals were known to hang out. He didn't sleep because he was manic. And he was grandiose, and he was highly narcissistic. And when he was Secretary of the Navy, he was so inflated with his own sense of self-importance. He was Assistant Secretary of the Navy. When the Secretary of the Navy went on vacation, he ordered 5 destroyers. Just ordered them up because, hey, he's always right. And there are many more stories about another president we could have disqualified named Teddy Roosevelt. So just think about how we assess people for the presidency. It's a very difficult thing to do. And yes, Grant did have an alcohol problem, but he was able to keep it under more control, I think, than people realize. And somebody says Abraham Lincoln was depressed because he understood about the Jesuits. Abraham Lincoln's depression, aside from being endogenous depression, and he's had a very depressed personality style, this is a little known fact. Viva, listen carefully to this one before I go to you. He became obsessed after seeing a prostitute down by the river that he had syphilis. He cut off his marriage, his engagement the first time to marry Todd Lincoln. No one knows why he cut it off. I think I know why, because of this obsession. He developed a relationship with a Springfield doctor, a doctor with whom he maintained a relationship through at least the first 2 to 3 years of his presidency, who put him on mercury. And he said, Mr. Lincoln, you do not have syphilis, but just so you're so obsessed, you're so depressed about this, I'm going to put you on some mercury so you don't even worry about it, because the mercury would take care of the syphilis even if you had it. He stayed on the syphilis for 4 years. The main side effect of mercury, depression. So some of his more severe fugue depressions came later when he was president. So anyway, so there we go. Thank you very much, everybody, for bearing with me while I tell these stories. we'll bring in the one and only Viva Frei in here. Viva, welcome. Thank you for being available to jump in. The quartering was, I guess his wife is in the ER or something.
I had heard that as well. I don't know what the situation is, so just hope it's nothing. Nobody goes to the ER for no reason, so hope it's nothing too serious.
Yes, likewise. So, starting with you, sir, thank you for being here. Give them the particulars. Where can they find you? Where they can see your show? Where can they see your two shows?
3 o'clock daily on Rumble. And if you put in Viva Frei and you go to news or you go to Google search, you'll find a ton of stuff. The best is, Drew, it's still top 5 moments of my life when I caught the bass off a drone. But all over the news, but Viva Frei on Rumble and the Viva Frei on Twitter.
You talking about the video of you going crazy with the fish?
When I caught a 2.5-pound smallmouth bass trolling a jitterbug off my DJI Phantom, it was pre-COVID. It was 2019, give or take. And I'm certain Quebec ultimately changed the law specifically because of that video, where they made it illegal to transport living animals off a drone, which I think I could argue my way out of because the purpose is not transportation, but rather trapping. It's not legal in every state, so you should absolutely double check before you try something stupid.
Very quickly, I want to respond to something on the restreams here. Somebody's saying that George Washington was given a fatal dose of mercury for swallowing difficulties. No, that did not kill him. The doctors found another way to kill him. In fact, it was, what's his name, that signed the Declaration of Independence. Blanking on that doctor's name. They bled him to death. He was in congestive, he had pneumonia and a little congestive heart failure, and they used to do bloodletting back then, and they bloodlet him. So, they were so anxious, it's George Washington, that they depleted him. They essentially exsanguinated him doing the, quote, bloodletting of the day. And that's how doctors killed George Washington. So anyway, so now we're going to talk about lawyers and doctors and our misadventures. Letitia James, my friend, what are we going to do with all that? I was saying beforehand, before you joined us, that I'm sure people do funny business on these loan applications all the time, but I don't know, if you get caught, isn't no one above the law?
Look, the argument, I forget, it was someone on MSNBC or CNN, one of the rags, where they say everybody does it. The loan was only $120,000. She only benefited upwards of $20,000 from this. First of all, there's no price. I mean, there are different thresholds for the type of crime depending on quantum. But first of all, everyone doesn't do it. Period. I don't do it. Yeah. And I'm not saying this like to be holier than thou. I don't do it because I don't want to get in trouble with the law. Like if they want to go after you and they want to find a crime, this is where they're going to do it. You lie about the value of assets for insurance purposes. If you underestimate or you deliberately don't disclose certain materially relevant information to an insurance company and they insure you for a lower price than they would have otherwise, they won't cover your loss, period. So people might do this all the time. They're taking their chances and it's illegal, period. But coming from the woman who wanted to lock up Trump and bankrupt him, destroy his life on the basis that what do they want? The $500 million disgorgement for the penalty, where there was no crime, even if what they said was true. And it's materially different than what she did, which was defrauding a Fannie Mae institution, which is a government institution, versus Trump negotiating as a private actor with a sophisticated trading business partner, a bank, that was not backed with government dollars. So it's materially different. Throw the book at her the way she came out on Twitter and said, throw the book at anybody who does this because no one's above the law. If anyone lied on their mortgage application, the government throw the book at them. Throw the book at her. She might need 2 or 3 books to be thrown at her.
And what do you, I worry about your profession. I'm going to bring this up for you too. Not I worry about you necessarily, but I worry about the profession generally, that it feels to me like sometimes lawyers, particularly criminal lawyers, like lose their bearing. Like it's just, they just sort of see everything relativistically, and it's like whoever's ox is being gored is all that's important to them. They sort of lose any kind of compass, a moral compass. Do you think that's going on here?
Shakespeare got it right to some extent. Lawyers are the scum of the... I say this, it's not nice, but everybody hates lawyers until they need a good one. And the good one is the one who finds every sneaky trick in the book to avail you of your rights. But there are bad lawyers, there are dishonest lawyers, there are scumbag lawyers who hide evidence, who destroy evidence, who lie. And I think that there are, this is my own personal experience, there are more bad dishonest, disingenuous lawyers than there are good. And the old trope, 90% of the lawyers give the other 10% a bad reputation. It's true. And it's not a coincidence either that so many lawyers, or I should say so many politicians, are former lawyers, because they are people trained to abuse of the law to get the outcome that they want, not that the outcome that is just right. And at the end of the day, that's the nature of the profession. You need, if a lawyer is not actively and vigorously pursuing the interests of his or her client, they're not doing their job. The only problem is people confound vigorously pursuing the interests of a client with doing anything in the battle that can be justified, so long as it's legal, and then even then you can fudge the lines. People hate lawyers for a reason.
But Viva, if indeed that's true, and if they kind of lose their way, why isn't the sort of the bodies that, the bar organizations and whatnot that are designed to supervise attorneys, why aren't they doing a better job? Why, in physicians, we are supervised, we are scrutinized constantly. Why doesn't the legal profession do that to itself?
Well, there's two ways to answer this. Robert Barnes, everybody should watch us on Sunday night. He often says the members of the bar protect the members of the bar. And it is something like a government institution that exists to protect its members. But you become on the outs of the institution, or if you are fundamentally on the outs of the institution, like as an independent lawyer, solo practitioner, they will throw the book at you. I mean, you get certain solo lawyers who are not in the big firms, who are not politically connected, and you do something unethical, put it in quotes, they'll throw the book at you. The same way if you're a politician who's on the outs of the party, they'll throw the book at you. George Santos being in jail for however many years is a prime example. But it's there to protect itself. And ultimately, even in the medical profession, to some extent, there is this thin, call it a white line in the medical profession. These licensure associations protect the people they want to protect, and they throw the book at those who are on the outs. And I went from a big law firm to starting my own law firm, and without railing too hard against the Bar Society, they were neither here nor there in Quebec. But it's like, as an independent practitioner, you get audited a whole hell of a lot more than the big firms, and you don't get away with a damn penny. Like literally, one of my funny stories was our trust account had accrued interest for a small interval because the bank had set the trust account up as an interest-bearing account when they weren't supposed to. I had like a matter of cents that had accrued as interest, and it was like it must have cost $5,000 with accountants and the Bar Society to resolve that. But a bit bigger firms, they don't apply the rules the same way. But the reality is, though, historically people have always hated lawyers, and there's a damn good reason, and we're witnessing it in real time right now. Lawyers,
you're not making a great case for the bar doing a good job of policing lawyers. You're saying it's a crony system that designed to protect people. It sounds horrible. It sounds the opposite of how physicians are policed. The opposite. I mean, we are. Oh my God.
Well, I'll say maybe I'm tainted by my own personal experience. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. If you are on the outs and they want to throw the book at you, they will destroy you. And if they want to,
Tom Wren's got railed too for it seems like nothing. I've observed what you're saying. What about Adam Schiff? Is he going to have the same problem?
Well, the markets are trending. I mean that literally, because there are markets as to who's going to be the next to get arrested. Schiff did, as far as I understand, the exact same thing. And by the way, just so everyone understands, with Letitia James, she has multiple properties. So she had the one property where she lied about her father being her husband. She had another property where she lied about the number of rooms. This was in respect of a third property, which was $100 and some odd thousand that she declared would serve as a secondary residence that she subsequently rented out. And so, the question is going to be, did she lie with intent at the time, or did the circumstances change? Right. Whatever. But Schiff did the exact same thing. Lisa Cook did the exact same thing. These people are corrupt to the core, and this is what happens when you scratch the surface. I have no doubt, in my humble opinion, they have done much worse. And this is where, how are you going to get me on this? I've killed people, like Al Capone says, and you're going to get me on taxes. But Schiff is probably next, and they make the joke Trump is abusing of mortgage fraud to politically target his rivals. First of all, don't do fraud and you won't have a problem. You guys did the crime that you accused Trump of doing. But second of all, it might just be the easiest one to start with because it's black and white on paper in sworn declarations under penalty of perjury. It's your primary residence or it's not. And you can't have two primary residences, certainly not one that's not in the state that you represent.
What about just the problem of lawfare generally? Don't we need to stop this nonsense, or do you feel you have to? Are there prime movers in this whole phenomenon? And they need to be taken out?
Well, this is the not the false moral equivalency, and I'm not accusing you of this, Drew, at all. This is the argument where they say, well, the lawfare is lawfare, and so this is no better than when they went after Trump. It's no better is an opinion. This is justice and not abuse of justice. Now, whether or not in the ordinary run of things you'd go after people for these types of crimes, I mean, okay, we're past the point of no return of normalcy, but this is not tit for tat revenge. What they did to Trump was manufacture crimes and lie. RICO charges out of Georgia that are not going to last long, that were horse crap from the beginning. They went after Trump's lawyers for actual legal advice that they gave Trump. Criminally, they went after them for the bar.
I know. I'm blanking on Christina Bobb. I mean, her story is mind-boggling. Have you interviewed her?
No, I haven't. No, I'd love to. I mean, but we've had, Jenna Ellis, who, they went after lawyers for doing the legal work. And so this is not a question of revenge. This is more a question of just actual justice and application of the law. So I'm not talking, don't falsify information. Don't manufacture RICO charges. It's black on white. You apply the law evenly to everybody, not disproportionately to some, and not made up crimes to others.
There's her book is called Defiant. It's the stuff she chronicles is mind blowing. So, and I think she was working on the defense of the Mar-a-Lago case. But let me ask you this. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and ask. I'm very curious what your thoughts are on this new this new appeal that was denied by Alex Jones for his, I guess, $1.6 billion fine. To call $1 billion a fine is hard even to understand because it doesn't. I can't imagine how it gets paid. But what are your thoughts on all that?
I have to get the details on this because the story or news broke today. But that's another case what I've been following for a long time. Where which level court was it at? It wasn't. I mean, this has to get it up to the Supreme Court at some point.
Apparently this was the Supreme Court who refused to hear the case. If I get it right. Emily, text me if I got that right. But here it is. Supreme Court rejects Alex Jones' appeal.
Yeah, well, that's a big problem. I mean, it's again, like, the way it works is they make an enemy out of an individual so that there's what's the word I'm looking for, like public goodwill cover. So that if they don't grant him relief, well, he's a bad man and nobody's going to feel too bad, and then this is going to be done to people who are not bad men. Although I don't think Alex Jones is a bad man. Period, and whatever wrongs he did in this case, I'm gonna have to look into that. But if it's so he'll go bankrupt, and that'll be it. And they won't collect. If they keep screwing around the way they've been screwing around, they won't get any, or they won't get anything meaningful by way of compensation. But the bottom line in this entire persecution, it was never about compensation for any actual victims of any actual intentional infliction of emotional distress. It was intended to shut Alex Jones down. But no, that's
and what bothers me the most about this is according to Joe Rogan, when he was saying the stuff about Sandy Hook, he was in a bipolar manic state. He had serious mental illness. And I think there may have been something else was going on too, maybe substances, something like that. And you're going to hold somebody accountable for something they say when they're in an altered state. That's shocking to me.
He might have been, whether or not, when he said I was in a state of psychosis during his deposition, I don't think he meant it literally. What I think he meant is he had been conditioned to find conspiracies everywhere, even when they didn't exist. Much like what people are doing today with the Charlie Kirk assassination, in my humble opinion. But the bottom line is he didn't say as much as everybody seems to think he said. He didn't go on for years about claiming they were crisis actors or that it never happened. He said a few silly things here and there, which amounted to minutes. And then there was years of him saying, no, the children died. They were angels that were murdered, and apologized for it repeatedly. But they put together this 16-minute montage of 10 years of on-air time to make it look like he went on day in and day out about this. But the bottom line is this also. They went after him for like commercial practices in Connecticut and intentional infliction of emotional distress. if the standard now is ratifying this $1.4 billion award for violent event denialism, everybody's saying that Trump didn't get it, the assassination was fake, you're on the chopping block. Everybody's saying, there are people out there saying Charlie Kirk is still alive. You're on the chopping block. And so this is, it's disappointing. I'm going to have to look into this, and we'll definitely talk about it when we have our Sunday show. But it's disappointing because due process was totally violated in the Alex Jones trial, both in Connecticut and Texas, and people don't seem to know this either. That he didn't have a trial on the merits. He was defaulted into a verdict of liability, a finding of liability, and the only trial he had was on the quantum after they hand-selected jury members who were amenable to issuing insane rulings. And you don't get $90 million as an FBI agent because somebody allegedly made up lies about you on the internet. Incidentally, the lies about that FBI agent, who I think he got $90 million. Alex Jones didn't make up those lies. The rumors were already on the internet before Alex Jones started covering the story. So it's a terrible precedent.
Caleb, you have a question about Alex Jones?
Yeah, a quick question, just a legal question, but is this gigantic $1.4 billion judgment, is this something that the president could pardon away? Is that anything effective, or is that just for criminal cases?
Only for federal criminal. This is civil. So no,
Okay.
it is. Look, it could be 50 trillion. You can only get, so much, 5 pints, there's only so much you can get out of a human. So he'll go bankrupt. And in Texas, they have good homestead laws in terms of what you're allowed to retain by way of home property, by way of certain amount of income. But the reality also is that, from what I understand, Alex in Texas had offered a substantial sum of money, like 50 some odd million dollars of a settlement, which they won't get if he goes bankrupt. But this was about shutting down InfoWars, which won't do much. He'll go and start something different. And there was a point, at least in Texas, where they were trying to get basically the rights to Alex's image and likeness in bankruptcy. So they could literally own his voice and own his social media. But no, that's it. He'll go bankrupt and they'll get pennies on the dollar for whatever claim they got. And he'll go on and live a more modest life and figure out other ways to get his voice out there and make a living.
We're going to take a little break. When I come back, I want to talk about this Tom Homan, well, it seems like a hoax to me. But I also want to talk about the shutting down phenomenon. And I'm writing down a word here that I hate, deplatforming. It's a brand new word. It was not uttered until about 5 years ago. And I want to talk a little bit about that and the assault on free speech. So Viva Frei is with us. Follow him on X. Be right back after this. I've spent most of my career dealing with illnesses that shorten life, and now we have ways to extend it and extend wellness. I've been working with the team over at V-Shred to develop a product that has everything I want in a longevity supplement. NR Boost has nicotinamide riboside. You know how metal can rust? Well, your body behaves in a similar way. It's mediated through something called NAD. NAD falls as we age, so we're less able to fight off that oxidative process. We oxidize much like that metal. And NAD fights it, but nicotinamide riboside elevates NAD so we can push back on those oxidative stressors, improving health, improving longevity. The other product is Senosync, has fisetin, one of the key molecules to fight off zombie cells, and we've added resveratrol to that, which is a well-known anti-aging antioxidant again. I don't like supplements that have a ton of ingredients. To me, it suggests that none of it's working. When I prescribe a medication, I prescribe that medicine because I expect that to work. That is exactly what I've done with these products. And I want you to go to drdrew.com/vshredmd for 10% off. Again, that is drdrew.com/vshredmd. The wellness company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and being rationally ready, and who knows what the future will hold for us. Now TWC has a service to cover your family's medical needs, including and especially prevention. For just $100 a month, the One Wellness Elite membership includes 2 free medical-grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions for over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine available at a moment's notice, and a 15% discount on all supplements and the emergency kits. 15% off the emergency kits. That's quite a saving. So if you're spending $100 or more on supplements and meds every month, this plan will already save you money. If you sign up for a year, you'll save $200. And when you use the link, drdrew.com/TWC, you'll get 10% off the first payment to the One Wellness Elite membership. Check out One Wellness at drdrew.com/TWC and get 10% off your first payment. drdrew.com/TWC. It's all there. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid, it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15.
That's brilliant. And thank you, Drew. Where's Dr. Drew? Where is he? Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew.
That little clip there of Donald Trump looking for me over at the White House reminds me of him with all those European leaders and Middle East leaders going, where's Greece? Where is Greece? He gets up there and he just starts just like pointing at people and acknowledging. It's just what he does. Viva Frei here with us.
He called one of the guys on stage with him. He had, I guess there was a hot mic moment where he was saying that he accidentally called him the president instead of the prime minister. And then he whispered and he said, well, at least I didn't call you governor, as if implying that, Canada being the 51st state.
Hysterical. Or senator. That was quite an event there, I got to say. Viva Frei, vivafrei.com, Viva Frei on Rumble, 3 o'clock Eastern time, Viva, is that correct?
Yes. 3 o'clock Eastern. I got to tell you, whenever I can't hear the words fatty acid and not giggle like a school child.
Well, take it and then keep giggling. It's fine. It's good for you. Lipids. Maybe that'd come off your tongue a little easier. So this Tom Homan thing. Has anybody seen this video? This video of a bag of money being transferred? They can't let go of this notion that it, like some sort of clandestine brown paper bag with 50 grand, then it was passed off. Where is this video? Have you seen it?
I haven't seen, well, we don't even know if it's a video or an audio. First of all, I never heard of Cava. What is it called? An upper class fast food joint or something? There was a word that they used to qualify it as like better than McDonald's, I think. I've never heard of Cava. I think this is all a secret marketing campaign for Cava. I'm joking. You saw the George Stephanopoulos clip with J.D. Vance?
Oh, did you see the Trump went nuts just before we came on about that? He was in a press conference. He was in a press conference. He goes, "Hey, John," he goes, hey, ABC, I'm never talking to you. I'm not talking to you. Not after the way you treated the Vice President of the United States. That's it. I'm not just sit. No, ABC out. Sorry. Isn't that interesting? So I thought
he should pull their credentials. Like you had JD, you apply for credentials because you want to report and you want to listen to the White House. You then have the vice president on and like a little this child. You cut him off and then go to commercials. All right, you lose your access to the White House. We're never doing interviews with ABC again, and you should have your creds pulled and fired. But it's George. The question he asked, and I made this joke earlier when I was live with my community. It was the paradigm example of when did you stop beating your wife? He says, well, there's a video out there that shows Homan taking a bag of cash. Did he keep the bribe? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So nobody's seen this video. Nobody knows what the heck you're talking about. And then you want to know if he kept the cash, which is being qualified as a bribe, even though Homan was not in government when this was alleged to have happened. And so at the very worst, if he was in fact given cash as a private citizen for work that he could do, it's called consulting. And then they say, by the facts of this alleged hoax, I should say, this alleged crime, which I believe to be a hoax, they say, we gave him cash so that he could procure us favors as a private citizen. At the time, we didn't think we had enough evidence to charge him. So we waited until Trump got elected in the hopes that he would be appointed to the administration so that we could then see if he would make good on his promise. That is the way that they were going to spy on Trump's administration yet again. Some deep state players at the FBI. And how are they going to do this? Like, this is what I'd love to know, because, Trump comes in, names his own DOJ head. So you get Pam Bondi in there, you get Kash Patel, you get Dan Bongino. How would they have maintained this investigation without disclosing it to Trump? Because in disclosing it to Trump, quite clearly, then the gig is up. So this had to have been something they planned to clandestinely surveil through whatever rogue activist rank and file at the FBI, in the hopes of then just continuing to spy on the Trump campaign after Homan goes from being a private citizen when the alleged crime took place to going to the administration. It's a hoax on its face, but if it's anything more serious, it could be what I think it is, which was an attempt to, again, surveil Trump, his incoming administration, and spy on him while he was president.
Wow. We have some breaking news on the Letitia James front. Her niece is living in the home at the center of the fraud indictment, is actually herself a fugitive from the law with a multi-year rap sheet. So good times.
It's almost like they are all a bunch of dirty, rotten criminals. I mean, it's almost like that. You like everyone from East Coast to West Coast at all stages of these proceedings. You have E. Jean Carroll, who, as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to get you in trouble, Drew, is a batshit crazy woman who manufactures a story, avails herself of a recently amended law to go after Trump. You get a judge, which judge was it in that case? It was Judge Kaplan in that case, who twists and turns the law to adjudicate Trump an RAPIST based on the fact that even the jury said no, but he deems whatever he did to be close enough, therefore adjudicate him the R word so the media can run with it. Then you got New York nipple judge Engoron out of New York with the Mar-a-Lago being worth 18 to $27 million. You got Judge Marchand, whose daughter was involved in financially benefiting off the prosecution of Trump. Fannie Willis, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, these are all criminals at the helm of what was nothing shy of a political persecution, but lo and behold, their relatives are also criminals.
Well, to distort and paraphrase Mark Twain a little bit, what is it? Liars, damn liars, and then lawyers. I think it was liars, damn liars, and then journalists, I think is what he said. But I'm going to co-opt it to lawyers. But back to shutting things down and this word platforming, which is a word that just makes my skin crawl. And when people first started saying that to me, I was like, you mean you're talking about having a conversation in public that is platforming somebody? Why? I mean, when I used to do my HLN CNN shows, we would interview anybody interesting. I interviewed Nazis. I interviewed supremacists. And let them expose themselves for what they were. I didn't worry about platforming them. I wanted to expose them for their shittiness, or if somebody has something somewhat interesting to say and somewhat controversial, I want to hear about it. You don't have to listen. It's up to you to do so. But this idea of you are criticized or in any way, let's put it this way, that any other person feels they have the right to tell another person who they can speak to, that is disgusting. It is disgusting. And or what they can speak about, disgusting. Am I getting something wrong?
Well, did you get in trouble for having a conversation with Elijah?
Yes. but that wasn't what I was talking about. I was talking about, I saw that run around yesterday. No, I got in trouble for having a conversation with Jay Bhattacharya and for having a conversation with RFK Jr. and for having a conversation with Peter McCullough. That's how I got in trouble. Yes. That's why when Jay told me he was going to be the head of the...
No, it's first of all, and I've been on Elijah's show as well. I mean, and then people say, easily influenced or manipulated as themselves. People are going to accept them and people are going to fall victim to them. No, you amplify stupidity.
That is the
Absolutely.
most offensive to get people to watch. And they were just
Absolutely.
Nazis,
Yes.
all the worst types of people. And yet none of those people were like attacked for platforming.
Yeah. The term,
Well,
it's a new term. People use it as though this is something that's just a routine piece of the English language. They invented it during COVID. It was an invented term, and it was invented as a cudgel, and it needs to be swept away. It needs to be, you need to call people out if they use that term. Speaking of platforming, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it came with the whole censorship portion of when people thought it was
Yes.
people out of the internet because you didn't like what they had to say. Barring violence, you let people be stupid and amplify their stupidity so that other people know about it. But Drew.
It's a Canadian, guys. A Canadian saying this. A Canadian. Come on now.
Heaven forbid we should have had actual discussions during COVID about vitamin D,
I know.
But earlier there brought up a comment that said Homan's not that stupid. I do have a separate theory to what's going on as well with Homan, is that he isn't that stupid. And if someone's throwing a bag of cash at him, he hasn't said much about this. And it's entirely possible Homan's like, all right, they're trying to entrap me. We're going to now turn the investigation on these guys and say, all right, I'm going to play along, put the money in trust, which is what he's alleged to have done. And we're going to investigate the people who were trying to set us up and then root them out of the FBI. We'll see. That's entirely possible.
Interesting. He's a pretty shrewd operator. He's been in law enforcement. Yeah, she to me, I mean, she has a point of view, which fine, but she seems like a real serious, very thoughtful, and she lets you know when she's giving you her opinions, and she seems like somebody that is interested in the truth, which I would argue is very different than the rest of the press corps out there. They seem to have no interest in the truth. So I don't know. She always has struck me as just a very, very smart, analytical person. And the fact that they're having a freak out over her. And by the way, she was put back to the deplatforming conversation. She was part of the controversy within the New York Times, which in retrospect, she was right, which was that free speech was being suppressed. And that there was this group at the New York Times, the social justice warriors, that thought that speech needed to be suppressed. And those people should be held on account. I mean, that is a despicable position to take.
Yeah, well, look, I don't want to go into the things that Bari Weiss has gotten wrong in her career. She may or may not have partaken in some of that disinformation back in the day when it came to Tulsi Gabbard. It looks like she's learned her lesson, or at least she's learned the lesson from that mistake that she made. I tend to think a little bit of the outrage is a little manufactured, because she's by no means the most radical in the opposite direction of whom they could have picked to do that. I mean, if it were Alex Jones or InfoWars, I could see people righteously.
Yeah, well,
but here I think no, I just say like
you're right. I mean, but by putting that analogy together, you show how stupid they are.
Yeah, well,
how silly they're being.
Freaking out over her, there would be people that they could freak out more over. But I do think that they're manufacturing the freak out to make her look more on the right than she actually. So, it might be what they call not a limited hang up, but sort of a manufactured, manipulated pushback, so that they end up with someone who's decent, which would be decent from their perspective, which would be Bari Weiss, and not someone even more to the right, like Alex Jones was too far, but you know what I mean, like someone else who would have actually been to get upset over.
I get it. I think that's a viable observation. And then finally, there's this phenomenon going around now where I don't know how to describe it, except that words that refer to behaviors or organizations that are, I would say, well established, like the word woke. Howard Stern says, what does that even mean? What is woke? I think I know what it means. Or you have people saying that there's no such thing as Antifa. It's a fantasy. Who invented this? And I've met people that say they're part of Antifa. And you need to go no further than downtown Los Angeles. There's tents where they have stuff all over their tents, with all the imagery of Antifa, who funds them and who organizes them and whether they have a central authority, it sort of doesn't matter to me. People understand what this is. What is going on here with people's inability to sort of understand language and understand things, in the world?
They understand it very, very well. The people who are doing this understand it. They're feigning confusion for deliberate reasons. They like having their brown shirts carry out violence while pretending that they don't have their brown shirts who are carrying out violence. How the hell anybody on earth says Antifa isn't an organization? They have a logo. They have accounts that have people claiming to be the founders of Antifa or proud members of Antifa. And whether or not it's a meme that attains reality, like there was something similar up in Canada where they had an, Diagolon. I'm not comparing them to Antifa. They were an internet community that the media tried to depict as a radical right-wing organization. And so at some point, people play on the meme a little bit. But even if it becomes something of a life of its own where Antifa never existed, but now people are saying, well, we like the way the media is saying it doesn't exist and we're going to become a part of it and claim to be a part of it, you might have organically or inorganically created it by denying its existence, having people saying, no, we're part of it. It exists. It's got a logo. It's got branding. It's got a purpose. It's got organizational skills. And so denying that it exists, it's just something that Joe Biden would do, probably because he's demented. Other people denying it exists is so that they can continue to use it as the violent branch of the radical progressive leftist line of government.
To this point, I was asking somebody this today, that this idea that it's outrageous that a president call in federal troops to protect federal property is the most bizarre notion to me, that people don't understand that the president of the United States takes a solemn oath to protect all federal properties. Abraham Lincoln sent troops down to Fort Sumter to re-provision the fort. He announced he had to do it. He put the logic of his obligation down on paper and said it was a solemn oath, I must do this. And he was fired on by the South, and that triggered the Civil War. But he still had to do it in his mind. Or before you came on, I was saying maybe his thinking was a little bit rigid, and he triggered the Civil War. But the same thing is true of the federal buildings in other states. The president has to protect them. Why is that a controversial issue?
Drew, we're talking about a political party that denies a violent domestic terrorist organization exists, where they're literally carrying out violence under their name. And you're dealing with people, set aside them calling in the feds to protect federal buildings. You are dealing with governors, mayors, who are openly defying the application of federal law. I mean, you are dealing with in the actual, legal definition, and criminals. I mean, this is aiding and abetting in violating.
Is that insurrection?
I would argue that it's much more insurrection than a bunch of federal agents letting people into a government building, the people's building. But we're dealing with actual criminals, and so once you understand that, and I mean, like Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, is actually participating in active criminality. To say we're not only not going to facilitate, cooperate with the application of federal law, we're going to oppose your ability to enforce federal law in our cities. Well, I'm sorry, if you want out of the Federation, who's the secessionist now? And also, you want those federal...
Right.
The federal dollars. I mean, I know that there's been litigation and there's been precedent about this, but if you're defying application of federal law, you should lose all federal funding, period. And but to understand, we're dealing with actual criminals of the highest order who come out and defend their criminal brethren, who oppose the application of federal law, who protect illegal criminal gang member aliens. It all makes sense. And the only question is, where does it go from here? And how do you resolve this? Because you're gonna see Zohran Mamdani getting elected mayor of New York, out there defending Letitia James, out there talking for globalizing the Antifa, not the Antifa, globalizing the, what's the word? Globalizing the...
Intifada.
Intifada, yeah.
I say, what the jihad? Globalize the Intifada. It has to get worse for the people not to vote these criminals into office.
I'm just thinking about the anti-fascist call generally. That Stalin invented that, everybody. Stalin invented the notion that if you disagree with me, you're a fascist. That was Stalin. So good times, everyone. Well,
it said like they're not calling you a Nazi because they believe you're a Nazi. They're calling you a Nazi because they want to justify violence against you. And there's no better way to do it. In their minds, I should say.
Do you know what the term woke means?
I have defined it as being progressive for the sake of progression, even if it's regressive. That's sort of the way I've defined it to myself. It's like it's being so virtuous that you have to be self-destructive or suicidally empathetic is how I would qualify it. Like progress for the sake of progress.
It's called toxic empathy. Empathy. I am really concerned about this notion that if you're not agreeing with the things I agree with, you're not interested. You don't care about other people. I had a long conversation with somebody today about vaccines. I'm like, look, if somebody decides not to take, let's take an extreme example, like a measles vaccine for their kid. Well, first of all, that person, I've never met a person that didn't care about other people. I've never met that person. Everybody wants everybody to thrive. And let's say that person elects not to put that vaccine in their child. They're afraid of it, whatever. Everyone else, all the other children that they are around are vaccinated. They would make sure of that. And if the child got measles, they would isolate that child from everybody else. They would not send that child out to harm other kids. It's not, there is just a difference amongst people about how we believe people need to get to thrive. Nobody doesn't want everybody to thrive, at least nobody I ever interact with. Everybody wants people to do well and thrive. It's just we have differing ideas about how to get there.
I think there are a lot of people who genuinely want people not only not to thrive, but to die. Like they wish
you're around too many lawyers.
I might be a victim of my own on the internet, but no, there's a lot of people out there who, if you don't do what they think you should do, they want you to suffer bad consequences to prove them right. And it's the worst energy to put out.
Rousseau. Everyone has to be forced to be free. Man, everyone in chains, there has to be forced to be free. So it's intolerance in the name of tolerance. It's a horrible impulse. It's a character pathology. You should wish well on everybody, and there are different ways that everyone can get there and thrive. Look at the evidence. What helps? What helps the most? That's the direction we should go, it seems to me. It seems like the direction we've been going has not been particularly helpful for quite some time. Look at what we did during COVID without considering the potential harms of all the interventions we did. Ugh.
Yeah, but then you get to the Jimmy Kimmels of the world who say, all right, you didn't do what I think you should do. Now I'm going to deny you life-saving treatment. Or in Quebec, they wanted to tax.
Well, I think even those people who went to those extremes in their opinions about lack of vaccines would now reconsider that position. I think they would. So, and I'm looking for people to apologize for stuff like that. I certainly would. I did say I got it wrong. I thought that vaccine was going to save lives, prevent it from spreading to other people. I was wrong. And obviously I was caught in the hysteria, and I apologize. Got that one wrong. But you don't hear any of that. And that's a shame.
You don't hear the people apologizing because the people who should apologize and won't are the same ones who would weaponize someone else's apology and use it against them and not actually forgive them, which is why they don't apologize themselves. I make a mistake. I apologize publicly and privately because it's not even for myself. But the people who refuse to apologize for their own wrongs, they refuse to do so because they know damn well they are not interested in anybody else apologizing, and they would use someone else's apology as a cudgel against that person for the rest of their lives.
Viva, we will leave it right there. I always appreciate talking to you. I appreciate you joining us. I know we pulled you in a little early today. I appreciate that very much. And tell people about Viva and Barnes and your show at 3 o'clock Eastern on Rumble. Where else?
3 o'clock daily on Rumble, Sunday night, 6 o'clock across all platforms, Viva and Barnes Law for the People. Twitter, the Viva Frei, where I have a bit of a potty mouth. At least I've lost my patience. And that's about it. It's daily lives and just trying to make sense of the world and, I don't know, deal with it myself. It's therapy. It's ongoing.
I know it is. It is. Again, words like freedom and courage were not words I expect to be frequenting at my age. I never occurred to me, but here we are. They're important words, and we all should be paying attention. Freedom has to be fought for. I've always heard that. I just never saw it, and now I'm seeing it. So here we go. Viva, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. All right, and coming up for us, I believe we have Del Bigtree tomorrow. He's got a new movie, an inconvenient, what's it called? Inconvenient experiment or observation or something. I'm here. He won a film contest. I hear it's great. And then we have the TWC guys with Gary Brecka on Thursday. I'll be with the Maha group tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific. Caleb, is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Tomorrow at 1. Wait, let me double check that. I should know. I'm producing them now.
Yes.
See.
Caleb is producing it, and we will be streaming it on our platforms and all of our sites and whatnot.
It's the Maha Media Hub. It's an interesting event. Really they have a lot of really cool people coming on. I believe, I'm not certain, but I think Dr. Oz is going to be there. I know Callie Means is going to be there. I know Gary Brecka is supposed to be there. Dr. Drew is going to be there.
Rand Paul will be there. That should
Rand
be
Paul. Yeah,
that's
the temporary schedule that I see right now. And Drew, you're going to be on there for sure. You'll be talking.
Yep. Okay. Thank you guys for being here today. Thank you for putting up with our scheduling issues. I hope Jeremy's wife is well. We'll get him scheduled again. The quartering, there he is. And I've got to run to the airport. So I'm going to wrap it up right now. Thank you so much all for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday at 4 o'clock. We have the 1 o'clock Maha thing, which I will be on. And then the 4 o'clock we'll be on with Del Bigtree. We'll see you then. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.